Well, hello everyone. This is the second podcast, and today my guest is Laz. She was in the Air Force, and now she is comedian, and I'm very, very pleased to have here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So first, I wanted to ask you, when you went to the Air Force, when you were a child, how did you thought that you will go to the Air Force one day?
Yes, I did. I actually grew up in the military, and so I was very familiar with military service.
Wow. So what do you mean by grow up in the military? Like, was your parents in the military or?
Yes, they were.
Wow. And how do you feel the Air Force uh, impact in your life and being
Well,
there?
as a child, I loved flying. I loved anything to do with aviation. Did you ever stare up at the sky and watch the birds when you were a kid?
Wow. Yeah.
And so just that love of flying that has always, I think, been part of humanity, looking up at the air and going, how do I get up there? And
Wow.
so, joining the Air Force and looking at that as, how do I fulfill that dream of actually being able to fly?
Wow. So which one did you drive? Because I know there is the M15, there is there is couple the military have them.
Actually, you may not realize I am horribly nearsighted. As a child, I had bifocal glasses. So I don't know how bad your eyes are. I had bifocals as a kid. So while I couldn't fly, I ended up flying civilian. So I flew Cessnas. And then I was a hang glider pilot for a little while as well.
Wow. And also, was it hard to be in the Air Force?
No, I loved it. I absolutely loved being in the Air Force. You're combining your skills training, so technical skills, leadership ability, and the possibility of how far can you take a dream. In my case, the opportunities to be able to go, even though I couldn't fly for the military, I could fly in the civilian community. I could, go find a hang glider, learn how to fly it, and then have an eagle just roll up on a wingtip as I was soaring the mountains one day. And he's looking at me like, you big dumb bird, what are you doing up here? You don't know how to fly.
So how often did you fly? Like, how often were you in the air?
As a hang glider pilot, I was flying basically every weekend. Every Saturday, I would go out and fly hang gliders.
And like, you fly for mission or you fly for fun or?
Just for fun.
Oh my God. Okay. That's cool. And also they say that when you go to the military, the Air Force, the Navy, there is some challenges. So that challenges makes life challenges easy. Did you find this in your life? Did being in the Air Force make regular life easy?
It gave a structure. It gave a structure so you know how to get things done. So you know how to structure a day where to get the following. If I want to be a stand-up comic, it means that I need to write my material. So I need to build in time to write. I need to build in time to practice. And then I need to build in time to go to a mic and work on it. Or if I'm getting booked on a show, I'm probably doing my set a few times before going to the actual show. That way, when I get to a show, I can actually successfully deliver the material and deliver the comedy to the audience.
Exactly. I listened too much to Jacko. I told you this, and I know more stuff about the Navy. How hard is it, and how different or how easy is it? The Air Force, is it? What's the difference? Is it much easier? Is there some?
Well, if you look at the cultural differences, how long have sailors been around? Not Navy, but just sailors or the sailing tradition. Look at the coast of Yemen. How many sailors are in Yemen that aren't in the Navy? And so sailing tradition has been around as soon as, basically as soon as humans saw the sea and it wanted to go and explore. For the Air Force, that was more technology driven. We had to wait for the invention of the aircraft. People had been trying to make aircraft for years. It didn't work. They finally managed to crack the code and built aircraft, and now we can fly.
Wow. So you would say the Air Force is also more like genius, or the would think more as well, or would you take it that way?
It's a different version of how you think. When you're thinking across the surface, if you're thinking, if you're thinking across the land, what's a trip you took when you were a child? You talk about traveling to school. So going from your home to a school, did you have to think about what altitude changes you were going to have to face?
Wow. Okay.
But you knew how to get from home to school. But now add another dimension in that. It's like three-dimensional chess. Because now not only do I need to know how to get from this point to this point, I need to know how high up am I? Can I land this hang glider? And then you have to know the winds. You have to know, it's fun to have an eagle fly up on your wingtip when you're a hang glider pilot. It's not so good when you have engines. You have a bird that's about to fly down an engine. That's a bad day.
You never had an accident or?
I crashed my hang glider on landing one day.
Oh my God.
Yes, I blew a landing. I crashed my hang glider. So yes, I took a lot of jokes for the triangle shaped control frame. Are you familiar with hang gliders? Have you ever seen a hang glider?
No.
It's basically a giant sail across the top, and then it's a triangle control frame. And you're hooked on cables from a point in the middle of your back to the sail.
Okay.
And you control the hang glider with your body weight. So you're hooked into a harness, and then you're flying just in the open air. And so the down tubes are this part of the triangle. They're the upper part of the triangle. And I landed hard and it bounced, and I broke both of my down tubes on my glider.
Oh my God. But what I mean is, when you are flying, mistakes are deadly. Like, you might die. Like,
You can die walking across the street. It's I think part of being military and part of just the upbringing that I've had, death is part of life. Death is a part of life. And it doesn't mean go out and do stupid things. Understand what is the risk that you're taking. Is the risk that you're taking worth what you're looking to achieve? In stand-up comedy, let's think for a moment about stand-up comedy, because I know we're both stand-up comics.
yeah.
When you go on stage, there's a risk that you'll have a bad set. What's the worst thing that can happen if you have a bad set?
You bomb.
You bomb, you feel bad,
Yeah.
you go, I can't believe I said that, but you're not physically injured. You haven't, you might be dying inside, a little embarrassed,
Yeah.
but you're not physically dying from doing stand-up comedy. There's nobody that's injured if you have a bad set. There's no destruction that happens other than maybe your self-worth, or you're going, oh my God, why am I a comic? I just did terribly. But there's no risk there. For some people, they look at hang gliding and say, that's too much of a risk. You could die while flying. In my case, I looked at that and went, the freedom of flight, being able to soar like a bird, that was worth the risk. That was worth the risk of injury. For me, that was worth the risk of death. For other people, they may say that's not worth it for me. I know that's not worth it for my life. And so you'll see differences in how people look at death. You were talking about Yemen, there's no health insurance. So, when you look at, does the ability to accept risk change if you don't have health insurance? Or is it injury and illness are part of life? Let's get on with life.
Yeah, and they also say that if death didn't exist, there will be no value of life. So they, in a way, complete each other. And also, you talked about comedy, that you don't get injured. So to be honest, I don't like school. I didn't like the university. I now I have too many files and documents for jokes, but when I had assignments, I wouldn't be able to write one file. But the reason I choose to do comedy, because I feel that it's a very safe way to be successful and you don't get hurt. So I love fighting, I love boxing, wrestling, and I want to talk with you about this. And I feel like I will never want to be a fighter, because when I see these people in the UFC or boxer, they are really gambling with their body. And I might love it as I love comedy. I always watch fights. I'm very obsessed with it. But I think comedy is a good gambling, that like you risk it, you bomb, and then you just go home. So I feel like it's that's why I'm also so focused on comedy.
Well,
So how was your diet and training in the military? Is it strict for the Air Force?
well, for the training, it's you start out, you do your basic training. And so basic training, it's when you look at the military in the United States, it's a cross section of American society. So we have immigrants who join the military. We have first generation Americans who join the military. We have, my husband was actually he's the son of a family that did not serve in the military. His family does not really approve of military service. My family was military. And so you'll see a cross section of America. You'll have men and women. You will have every race, creed, color, ethnicity. You will have kids from a rural farm. You'll have kids from the big city. You will have kids from the far reaches of Alaska or from Hawaii. You will have, we had I still remember a couple of our troops who had come to America on a green card and enlisted in the military and were becoming US citizens.
Wow.
And so you've got all these different cultures and people and experiences, and basic training is meant to give them a one baseline. This is the military culture. This is the Air Force culture. This is your foundation. This is the commonality that brings everybody together. And that's where you start. And that can be difficult. Because not many people, we did have those ladies and gentlemen who grew up in military school, whose parents put them in military school from the time they were very young children, but they were very few.
Mm-hmm.
For everybody else, it was, okay, who grew up in the military, who has been in the military, who has been prior service and is coming back to the military. What do we actually see? And the goal is get everybody on that solid foundation, so you know what it means to be a soldier, a sailor, an airman, or a Marine.
Wow, but also, how about the diet? Or you can just drive every weekend and eat McDonald's?
No, it's actually one of the things that we have to do, because we have had ladies and gentlemen that did not grow up having a healthy diet.
Okay.
That did not grow up. And so maintaining your health, learning how to eat properly, and make sure that somebody is eating enough, eating the right foods, and eating where they're not making everybody else at the table sick. So learning how to go through, get everyone fed. And it changes the further up the ranks you go. There's a fantastic book out there called Commanders Eat Last.
Okay.
It's you take care of your junior troops. They eat first. And it's the perspective of troops are entrusted to you. You are entrusted with the well-being of these ladies and gentlemen. And the well-being, they may disagree. It's like little kids who say, I want to eat dessert for dinner every night. That's not in the best interest of their well-being. And so sometimes explaining to them, you need healthier food. You can't eat pizza every night.
Exactly. And even they say that unhealthy food, it's just enjoyable in the mouth, but when it goes in, your body is fucked. So just when you bite it in your mouth, and that's one advantage of growing in Yemen. So in Yemen, we don't have McDonald's, we don't have KFC. We think that Pepsi and Coca-Cola is Illuminati, and they are, so for chocolate, my dad thought that they use pork oil on it and chocolate, so I never eat chocolate. So basically it's easy for me now. Like I lost the taste of chocolate, I lost the taste of McDonald's, and I'm happy. How about the training? You took that, you even meet your husband in jiu-jitsu class, or is it part of the Air Force?
Well, he and I met in military school, and we were in martial arts class together. And so he was my training partner. We actually were full training partners for a full year before we ever started dating. And you rapidly find out that this is somebody that I can communicate with. This is somebody I can understand. You can probably suspect, as a female in the military, there's not very many men that want to actually see a military female. We are still an anomaly, even in America. We're not as uncommon. In my mother's generation, a woman in the military was typically insulted. There were some very terrible terms that were used for any woman who joined the military. And nowadays, those jokes actually don't even make sense anymore because the culture has changed so much. But yeah, she had wanted to join the military when she was young, and her brothers threatened to disown her for it.
Wow. And I know you've been with your husband for 29 years or 20, something like that. Is it 20 or 29?
We are actually coming up on an anniversary, so close enough.
Wow. And what I want to tell you from this is, I think when you were partner on martial arts, for 1 year, I think that builds strong love and communication. Maybe that's the key of the success of the relationship.
That, and my husband is just a wonderful guy. He puts up with me. Let's face it, he is a wonderful guy. He puts up with me. So, but he is a gentleman. When I first met him, he actually was serious about believing in equal rights for women.
Mm-hmm.
It's, there's a lot of people, even in America, that the argument is, do women want equal rights? Are they different rights? Are they special rights? Are they other rights? My husband fully believes in equal rights for women, which means additional responsibilities that you don't typically see in a traditional female role.
Yeah, I also want to ask you, when you were training partner with your husband, did you tab him more or did he tab you more? Who was doing this? Because if
Who was the better fighter?
Yeah, if I meet someone and she tabbed me more, there is no way I'm going to propose to her.
Well, let's put it this way. We are both adept martial artists, and he was a very good training partner. He was a very, very good training partner to learn with.
Yeah, because I think they even say that, I don't know how did you do it, but the people think like when you train with someone, you have to, in order to learn and be strong, hit each other. You have to be like animals. And I think now the new way is to be gentle to each other, to take it easy, to build, to learn. You are not supposed to hurt each other, or it's a learning process. What do you think?
Well, learning the craft and technique, learning how to properly do a throw, learning how to, this is very old style language for modern English, but learning how to give quarter, which basically means you don't have to demolish someone. To do a proper armbar on someone, you don't have to break their arm. In fact, preferable not to break their arm, because when you actually lock out their arm, now you can control where their body goes. If you break the arm, you lose that control over where their body goes. And so
Wow.
learning. Sun Tzu actually talks about the highest form of fighting is to not need to fight. And so how do you handle the situation with the least amount of aggression that's needed? Can you distract someone? Can you talk them down from being in the middle of a fight? There was I was actually in school at Colorado Technical University, and I came out of class, and these two gentlemen, I'm using that term very loosely, were being stupid with their cars. And they were following each other and screeching screeching the wheels, blowing the horns. They got out, pushed and shoved each other, yelled and screamed. Obviously, something had happened. And for whatever reason, the guy at the front of the two cars threw it in reverse, backed up right as the guy in back of him started to pull forward. They hit. So now they're back out of the vehicles, pushing and shoving each other, yelling and screaming. And I look at the situation, and my reaction tends to go about 2 seconds before most male reactions. We learned that in martial arts class. And my husband looked up and he said, all of a sudden he realized I was gone. I was no longer by his side. I was gone. And he looked over, and I'm standing there with one guy on each side, with both of them yelling over the top of me.
Wow. Okay.
But I kind of had figured that if I could break it before they started throwing punches, I could diffuse this. And so I've got two very irate gentlemen, one on each side, and our distinguished dean of engineering came walking out of the university, and she was a much older lady. And I looked over, and it was fairly instantaneous. And I told the gentleman, watch your mouth, there's a lady present. And the one gentleman went, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. And he walked off. Now I've only got one problem, and that's this other idiot over here. So this guy is now taken care of. There was no need for a fight. There was no need. A simple statement of you're behaving inappropriately in front of a distinguished academician was all it took to get this one guy to go, I'm out of line. And so he walked away. Now I've got one person to deal with. Much easier to deal with one person being a fool than dealing with two. So the good news was I was able to talk the second gentleman down, and they departed. We did not have, there was no police that had to be involved. It was, how do you diffuse this without having to throw a single punch?
Exactly.
I heard afterwards from my husband and from one of my instructors who walked out that the reaction was, if either one of them hit her, my husband's reaction was, if either one of them hit her, they're going to be dead. My instructor's reaction was, if either one of them hit her, every guy in this place is going to beat the hell out of them. The problem was going to get solved one way or another.
I'm not the best fighter, but I know how to fight. I'm so scared of street fights, because you are actually risking your life on someone past, and you don't know what he been doing all his life. Maybe he been smashing woods, and then you get your body in front of him. And second thing is, people die. Like some people, one punch, some people might fall to the ground and break their head. So both is so risky. If he hits me or if I hit him, I'm so scared from both. And I also want to ask you, do you think it's which one is more important, to learn how to do kickboxing or jujutsu and like ground fight, or kickboxing? Which one is more important in your opinion?
I've never done kickboxing except as one time in a class. I've actually never really studied that art. Aikido was very nice as far as a defensive art. Jiu-jitsu actually and ninjutsu actually include a lot of the grappling techniques that you'll see in Aikido. Judo was basically for sport. It's one of those things where I think having any training just a little more confidence and knowing how to throw a punch if you have to, how to block an incoming punch if you have to, how to fall where you're not going to injure yourself. You know, any art will actually help a lady or gentleman with the wherewithal of what's going on around me. Am I aware of my surroundings? What am I walking into? And to have somebody have the confidence of knowing that if I have to fight back, I have that ability. I get very scared when I see ladies or gentlemen who have no ability to defend themselves. One of the comedy clubs local area here, it doesn't show from obviously the Zoom, but I'm 5'10". I am very tall for a female. I am physically larger than almost every single comic on scene. There's a few that are taller than I am, but not many. And there are very few who are actually trained. And so I've been asked to help other comics get to their vehicles at the end of the evening. And then the club owner looks at me and went, wait a minute, I should be escorting you to your vehicle. Because culturally, it's more appropriate to escort a female to their vehicle. It's very unusual. And this is from the comedy scene. We talk about never punch down in the comedy scene, you know, the power dynamics that we talk about. I'm a bit of an oddity in comedy. When you talk power dynamics, typically a male has a higher power dynamic than a female does. You've seen enough of my comedy. What do you think happens if I tried that? It doesn't work.
It goes wrong, yeah. And you know,
and so,
yeah, sorry. Keep going.
And so, you know, it's one of those things of, I've offered to escort comics, especially after the late shows, I've offered to escort comics to their vehicles. And I had to tell the club owner, I said, that goes for both males and females. When you have got a young male comic who is physically a lot smaller, you know, does he need the protection as much as the young female comic? When we talk equal rights, when we talk equal protection, you know, let's, you know, trying to take out the mentality of it's only the females that might need somebody to walk them to their vehicle. Let's include the younger males where it's culturally appropriate and acceptable for a young man to go, we're in a bad neighborhood. It's late at night. Can somebody walk with me? Yes, I have no problem walking someone to their vehicle.
Okay, that, yeah, because there is a lot of studies and to say what's the difference between male and female. And really, there is so many differences that science shows. How females approach things, how males approach things. But it's still a little bit weird how society looks to female and male. And that's why humans, we still have some of our like stupidity and nature. And I like just to, as I always say, to listen to science, because science gives value for hard work, for something that's approved from the lab. So why not, like, if we need to see the difference between men's and women's, we know there is some science. Let's leave the cultures and old thoughts. I also grew up in Yemen, and I'm like, you were in the military, you did mixed martial arts. It's like there is 30 million in Yemen, the population. Maybe women's are 15 millions, and maybe zero have the opportunity to be like you. And that doesn't mean that I think if they open, there is women that could do this, but we still approach it with culture, with all these things, and someone will just get to arrange married and have 5 kids, and she doesn't know what she wanted to be. But why do you, like, you scared me now when you say that you had to take to go with some comics to the car. Is it like, did they say bad jokes and someone threatening them, or what's going on, Les?
No, it's for a lot of the comics, and you'll see this as you travel around more and more with your comedy. There are comedy clubs that are in fantastic neighborhoods. There are mics that you will go to that are dive bars that are in horrible neighborhoods that are, I know you know Aaron DeSpiva. and he does a benefit for Bay Area Arts and Entertainment Cooperative. And the Bay Area Arts and Entertainment Cooperative, their whole goal is to build a theater where comics can go practice their craft without having to go to some terrible place, some very sketchy dive bar. And so to ensure the safety of comics, to have a better place to actually take them, where they can work on their craft without having to go to a bad neighborhood. My suspicion is you've probably been in a city in Yemen where you're going, we've got some ladies or gentlemen here that are not safe to be around.
Yeah, but so like I know you are so confident because you have some knowledge. And for example, if you've been in situation, what's your first move if like there is someone that comes to attack you?
Well, fortunately, I have not had to deal with that recently. I dealt with when I was much younger, much younger. And this was actually before I went into the military. Part of it is being aware of what are your surroundings. You don't know what's in anybody else's mind. You don't know if somebody is looking to cause trouble. And so keeping your awareness up, looking at it going, do I really need to walk that close to this lady or gentleman? You know, when I first walk out of a comedy club, I look around. Is there anyone in the parking lot? Is there any place where somebody might be hiding? Am I in a town or a location where there are some people who might have ill intent? For the most part, people are good. The preponderance of humans are just regular people trying to get along in life. And it doesn't matter what culture you're in. They just want to get along in life. They want to have a better life for their family. They want to, achieve some dreams. But every once in a while, you've got somebody, God forbid, they're mentally ill or on drugs or had just something going wrong here where they're thinking that it's appropriate to go physically attack someone. They're fortunately in the minority. Most people you meet are good. But when you have the person with the mental illness or out of their mind on drugs or something bad going on with them, and they're not in the right mind, what can you do to stop that? Well, if I can see that the person's yelling and screaming and coming across the parking lot, I can walk back inside. I can just disengage right there. If I have distance between me and them, now I don't have to immediately respond to the physical attack. Can I put a vehicle? In Yemen, it would have to be a camel. In America, I can put a vehicle. I love your camel set. I absolutely love your jokes about speeding camels.
Thank you.
But, can I put something between me and them where they can't physically reach me? How do I stop an attack before it becomes an attack? Sometimes you'll see somebody who's just losing it in the moment. They're freaked out in the moment. What I found there is the simple question of, are you having a bad day? And how much that will get people just to stop and go, yes, I am. Okay, tell me about it. The opportunity for somebody to go, this just went wrong. I'm ready to punch a wall. Okay, well, use a punching bag. Don't break your hand and don't punch me.
Yeah, exactly. They always say that whatever, even what you say, what we are saying now in this podcast, it's like reaction on our past, on what we did, on how people talk to us, how we are formulating our mind. So when you see someone panicking or someone is this, it's not, it didn't just happen by luck or because it's all what he been told. Maybe someone abused them when they were young and they never recovered from it. But I really want your advice on this. How do you avoid? Okay, I go to the gym and there is one guy, I feel like he has demons in his mind and he just decided that he doesn't like me.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, he would bother me if I'm doing one machine. Like he would try to come and ask me, when you gonna move? How do you avoid these people, or how do you talk to them? And is there a point where it's just physical and you have to go and just hit them? How do you deal with these situations?
Well, in this case, let me ask you, okay, when he approached you, how did you handle it in that moment?
So for me, I showed them that you are an asshole. Like I just didn't like him, and I never smiled to him. And
Mhm. Well, it's a lot of that's going to be what's going on in that moment. In America, if somebody walked up and said, hey, how long are you going to be on that machine in the gym? Usually you tell them, I've got 3 more reps to do, and then it's yours. Or if I'm just starting out, would you like to work in? So I do a set, and then I let them do a set, and then I'll do a set, then they'll do a set. And so you work in together on a set. If they are physically attacking me, then there's going to be a brawl right there. I'm going to do everything I can to diffuse it in advance. But just a simple, honest answer, you'll see this in comedy too. When we have a heckler, and I don't know, have you dealt with a heckler yet?
what do you mean by heckler?
It's the person who is interrupting your set as you're doing your stand-up comedy.
Oh
They're
my,
harassing you while you're on stage.
okay.
I don't know if you've dealt with this.
No.
Okay, I've dealt with hecklers a couple of times. In one case, the gentleman who came after me in a comedy show, for whatever reason, he decided that he was going to spend his whole set running me down.
Okay.
I waited till he was off the stage.
Yes.
I waited until he was off the stage and out of the showroom. And I walked up and I asked him, I said, did I say something wrong on stage? And he looked up, freaked out, said, I took a whole lot of drugs and I was drinking and I really didn't pay attention to your set, but I thought you said this. I said, no, I didn't say that. That is not any part of my set anywhere. I said, so I'm not sure what you heard. He apologized to me for being a jerk on stage. We get along fine. I haven't really seen him much. He actually is a comic out out on the East Coast. So I have not seen him since that issue. Now, is it possible I could see him in the future? If we may be on the same comedy show someday, would I rather have someone who goes, you know what, I screwed up when I was a young comic, I won't do that again. Solving the problem in the long term. So there's no bad blood that was left there because that was worked out. In the case of, we had 4 people in the audience at one of the comedy shows I was doing. I was actually, this was an open mic. I was the 32nd comic on the list that night. There were 32, there was a bunch of us. There was far more than 30. It was a several hours long comedy mic. And 4 gentlemen in the corner were causing problems for every single comic that went on stage. By the time I got to and I have all the respect in the world for the comic who came ahead of me, because he did his set, he did his time, and he got off stage. They put me up on stage. I got through 2 minutes of my 5-minute set. And I realized that the audience wanted something done with these 4 gentlemen. And I'm looking at it going, they want attention. These 4 are looking for attention. The rest of the audience wants these 4 dealt with. I borrowed the light from the host, took the microphone off stage with me. Thank goodness this was a cordless mic. Took the microphone off stage, shined the light on these 4, and the rest of my set was about these 4. The audience, it is the only time in my life that I have left the stage to cheers. Because when the host actually, she borrowed another cell phone, gave me the light, it's like, ladies and gentlemen, that's my time before these 4 are doing time. I'm Liz Frisius. And I walked off the stage. I left to cheers. Why? What is your audience looking for? Your audience is looking to be entertained. They're looking to have a good time. These 4 are causing a problem. These 4 want attention. I can give them the attention they're begging for, and I can give the rest of the audience entertainment all at once. It was probably, it's my only time really dealing with hecklers. It worked out beautifully. I know there's going to be days when it's not going to work out so well.
And how often do you like perform and go to? You are where are you about? Where about in the U.S. you are? I should ask.
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, so I'm in the Southwest desert of the United States. And I basically do shows or mics every single day of the week.
Wow, that's really disciplined. But I hear that New York is very famous with comedy. I even heard that people come from Australia for holiday just to listen to comedy. It's is
In
Phoenix
America,
where you are
yeah,
the same or no?
well, in America, there are two main places for comedy. You go to New York to get good. You go to Los Angeles to get famous.
Mm.
Now, you can do comedy across the United States. There's comedy clubs all across the United States. I typically do comedy in Tennessee or in Arizona. I work both areas. I have done comedy as far north as South Dakota. I have done comedy in Maine. And comedy, you'll notice that there's differences in your audiences, what audiences respond to. And most comics, we're looking for that universal joke, the one that everybody can relate to. And so it's been interesting traveling across the United States and figuring out what are different comedy styles. What are the audience looking for? The in Phoenix, Phoenix is a thriving scene. We do have four major clubs here: the Tempe Improv, Copper Blues Live, Stand Up Live, and Rick Bronson's House of Comedy. Then we've got smaller comedy clubs: Stir Crazy Comedy Club in Glendale, JP's Comedy Club in Gilbert, Improv Mania in Chandler. There are smaller clubs than that. There's a lot of improv studios. There's the mom and pop coffee shops. There are the dive bars that'll hold open mics. And so you'll find all levels of comedy, from your national headliners, your international comics, down to your kid out for his very first time doing a comedy mic.
Interesting. And also, you know, the people say, or mostly I listen to Joe Rogan, and he says that he used to be an actor and work for acting, and he said that comedy is good because you don't need Hollywood, how to call it, Hollywood or Hollywood.
Hollywood, yeah.
Sorry, you don't need them. You don't need the TV show. So comedians can just make podcast, invite each other to make each other known, and visit each other. So in a way, like comedy, you can get famous just by being nice to each other, by supporting each other, by having your own podcast. You don't need anyone or company or boss to help. How do you feel about that?
Well, we're seeing changes in technology that are going with the comedy scene. It used to be, if you wanted to be in a play, you were probably going to New York. If you wanted to be in the movies, you had to be in LA. Now people can actually produce their own independent films. Now it's a smaller budget, it's a smaller scale, but they can do their own independent films. As far as comedy is concerned, there are open mics. Now, the question for a lot of our young comics: what do you want to do with comedy? Where do you want the comedy role to go? For somebody who's saying, I want to be a national headliner, they're probably going to go to New York, or they're going to go to LA, or possibly both. Get that experience. If you're going, I want to be a local comic, we have several comics here in Phoenix that are local comics. They travel in the state or in the Southwest region, but they really don't plan on being a headliner. They don't plan, they may want to be a headliner on the local shows, but they're not looking at being a national touring comic. And that might be, okay, they've got a family, they've got children, they want to be home in the evenings. They can do a local comedy show and still be home. They don't have to travel halfway around the world or halfway across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, what does somebody want out of a comedy career? What are they looking to do?
Yeah, Les, and I also think that part of success and part of achieving what you want to achieve is to have a vision in your mind, a clear vision, where you want to see yourself, how you want to see yourself, so your steps will be sharper and more benefitable. The reason I opened this up is Joe Rogan, he opened his comedy club in Texas.
Mhm.
And now he is trying to bring more comedians to Texas. And he's saying that what we should do. That maybe we can have a place like Texas. Maybe he want to move it from New York to Texas. What do you think, Laz? Do you think, because he's trying to invite all the comedians, he has the best podcast in the world. I want to go there. So do you see that comedy might move from New York to Texas?
Well, here's the thing. Mr. Rogan is a brilliant businessman. He's also a fantastic comic. Now, when you're looking at it at the moment, I think part of what he's looking at, if you take a look at what COVID is doing to the New York scene, from this morning, how many of our New York comics have lost shows recently because of COVID? Here in Arizona, we had when California was locked down so badly, we had 11 LA comics that came out, including 5 headliners. And they were at the local mom and pop coffee shop doing sets. And it was a thrill to be able to see them. But we had comics coming in from other states who came to practice their craft. They knew that LA had been shut down. They couldn't get stage time. They knew they had shows coming up. They wanted to stay current. They wanted to stay prepared. So they traveled out here to Phoenix. In Texas, you have a lot more ability to do shows at the moment. That's nothing to do with comedy per se. That's COVID restrictions. And so once again, back to, we were talking risk before. Does somebody want to accept the risk that COVID is out there? Or they go, nope, I can't, my health, my family, whatever. Both are acceptable conclusions to draw. New York takes a far stricter stance than Texas does. So Texas has a few more opportunities as New York clubs are closing again. So where is that balance for the comics? Will Austin ever take over as a comedy mecca from New York or LA? Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah, that's a good answer. That, like you are saying, that it depends on how risk lover people. It's like the stock. Some people are risk lovers; they would buy it. Some people no. But um, what Joe Rogan point view is also the government of Texas through this COVID show that they don't want to control people, even for the future. It's safer to build in something in Texas and to stay there, even for the future. Because, for example, what happened now, COVID, how the government reacted to it, it's scary in the future. And if something again happen, if you are in New York, the government will, again, I think it depends how you say, people, how they think and how they want. But for me, if I'm a comedian, I will not want to stay in place like New York, where if something happened like COVID, I will lose my business. I would just stay in Texas. I'm healthy.
And like I said, that's decisions that every individual has to make for themselves. That's decisions that business owners have to make. And is there a right way or a wrong way? No, there's so many unknowns. And so people are drawing their own conclusions. We were talking about science before. It's interesting to see when science gets politicized. I'm not a fan of it. Like you, I prefer the empirical data that goes with science. But COVID is here. People are trying to survive business-wise. They're trying to survive comedy-wise. And so what is their risk assessment? There have been open mics that I've gone to where I've actually physically carried a computer to the stage. We had a comic whose health does not allow her to travel out. She still wanted to work on her craft. We found a way. We actually set the computer on the chair on the stage, put the microphone by the computer and had her do a set from the stage, even though she was at a remote location. So how much can we think creatively to help our ladies and gentlemen? When you look at the Zoom mics, why do we have Zoom mics? Because comedy was going to exist. Now we have virtual comedy clubs out there where people can go in with a VR headset and do stand-up comedy or be part of an audience. Is it as popular as going to a club? No, not yet. Will it be in the future? Maybe. How do we adapt comedy to what our circumstances are? How do we keep it going?
Yeah, and I think the problem is you might meet someone who his mom died by COVID or their most loved one. So they are so like when they hear COVID, it's connected by this memory, losing their most loved one. And then you meet someone like me, who my sister had COVID, and she didn't even get some symptoms. I think maybe I got it at the beginning, and I didn't even have that symptoms, you know. So it's in a way like emotions come in, but some people are saying, like, I want just, what do you think? That, for example, now there is more restrictions with safe pass and all this. So if, for example, COVID is gone, do you think things will come back how it was in 2018, or they will try to still have some control on the people? Or do you think things, like, let's say there is bill or there is something that everything is gone, do you think things will come back how it was in 2018? What do you think?
Well, I think that's going to depend on where you're at.
Texas.
Okay, if you're talking Texas, here's the thing. We have seen developments in comedy. We've seen developments of Zoom mics. While most comics say they don't want to go back to Zoom mics, we do have a group of comics that love the Zoom mics and prefer them to being in person.
Wow.
Is there also part of the population that prefers going to Zoom mics? How many of our ladies and gentlemen were watching Zoom mics from areas that were locked down? So I don't think that is going to go away. I think we will probably see a continuation of that or an evolution of it. I think we may see, okay, how is, as VR technology is improving, how many people are going to start investing in VR technology? Will they actually prefer to go to a virtual comedy room versus going to an actual comedy room? We have a generation of ladies and gentlemen who love video games, who grew up with technology, and they're having problems socializing face to face. Will they prefer the VR in the future over being there in person? And so the question is, how will our craft adapt and change? How do we look for those changes? How do we stay on board with what's going on? How do we get that experience? And how do we realize that, okay, there is a shift in the comedy scene. There's a shift in what we're doing in entertainment. You look at, are you a fan of music?
I'm a fan of podcasts. I listen to them more than music.
Okay, well, when did podcasts come about?
It's new. I think like 15 years, 20, I'm not sure. 10 years.
Yeah. Podcasts are still a very new entertainment industry.
Very new.
But here's the thing. You're already up on a podcast. You are on part of the leading edge of technology. There are those who, when you look at new technology or evolutions, you have those that will immediately go with it. You know, the guy who's standing outside looking to buy that brand new cell phone or that brand new computer, he's an early adapter to the technology. Then you've got a bunch of people who will come on board with it. And then you've got the few stragglers like me who carried a flip phone, because I didn't carry a flip phone even for years. And so you know, where are people's tolerances for learning new technology? We've seen some technology that's come and everybody goes, why? And it goes away. So being an adapter of new technology or an adopter of new technology, you may be dealing with something that you're never going to use. It's going to go by the wayside immediately. Or you may have something that is cutting edge and everybody's going to use. there for a while, from the evolution of music, and I know you're not a huge music fan, but it went from records to 8 tracks to cassette tapes to CDs. And then you had the little
Makes sense.
then all the little metal devices that you could have all of your music on. Then all of a
Mhm.
sudden it started being put on cell phones. And then now you can stream it online off a computer, off your cell phone.
Makes
And
sense.
so all that previous technology, although interesting to see that records are coming back for the
Yep.
sound quality.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and I think I don't think it's also a smart question to ask, will things come to back in how it was in 2018? Because I think things move so fast. Like how I think that now we can replace knees, we can replace hips, and it's moving fast. And I think maybe we will be able to replace all the human body. Like I think. And also, like, I think people used, for example, camels. Well, it's still used in Yemen, but you see, people used camels for 100 years, maybe thousands years. But from the beginning, when the first car was made until today, how fast we are moving. So it's scary, and I'm sometimes just scared. I don't want to keep you long. You also have appointment later, so I will end up this. This is the last question. What do you prefer, the Zoom or the alive mic, the real one, in the real world? Do you prefer the real world or the Matrix? Uh, Maybe you can just tell me about this, and I can let you go.
I absolutely love the live mics. Given a choice between having a live audience or having a remote audience, I love the feedback that you can see, the body language out of your audience. It's tougher to see on a Zoom mic. I still do Zoom mics. You've seen me on a fairly regular basis on the Hail Mary mic, but to have the opportunity to be on stage with an audience that has come to laugh, that has come to find, some relief from the hassles of the day-to-day world, and they're coming to laugh and find joy. That's just, for me, that's just an extreme experience. I love that.
Yeah, it's and for the online mics, like if there is no online mics, we wouldn't have met. Maybe I wouldn't be able to do comedy yet because I'm still in place where they don't know what's comedy. There were owner of restaurant. He say open mic, and I told them I have comedies. What's comedy? Open mic people only come and sing. So I'm like, God damn it, maybe the Matrix is better. For me, in being in my location now, I rather live in the Matrix with people in the US if I would stay. But hopefully I'm moving also physically. And Laz, this has been so great. And I'm so thankful that you give me the opportunity, you put the time out there. I really appreciate it so much. Thank you so much, Laz.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, and enjoy the rest of the day. I would enjoy the rest of the night here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye bye.